Okay. So I did things a little different with this hive. I moved them from over there where there are some forager bees going, where the heck is my house? And then moved them over here, took off their honey super. I'm waiting for the bee quick spray to take effect and chase all the bees out of there before I take it into the house. Added another deep box to give them more room because they've been bearding. And when I've emptied out this box, I'll give it back to them to clean out and or start filling again. So weirdly enough, this is one of my stronger hives. It was a later swarm. It wasn't the latest I've ever had, but May as opposed to April. It was humongous. I had already in this site, which was supposed to be, it's just a pallet that I put down. You can see all the weeds are growing over it, and here's the lawn, and here's that little corner. My dad's not happy. He hasn't said anything, but I know. So I thought, yeah, I better move these guys over. So I think this is like 12 or 15 feet. They should find their way. They're starting to move there. Then I'll let them get settled. Then I'll move the pallet weed whack. And then the plan is, unfortunately, this is the west side of the house, which gets really hot sun. Not so bad in the winter time or spring, fall when it's nice and cool, but when it's, high 80s, 90s to 100s, it gets a little warm here in the afternoon, and I know bees are supposed to take it, but these are some pretty good bees. They were very, very calm. I wore my veil just because unintentionally a bee will get caught up in my hair, and then she gets ticked off and I have to dispatch her because she's about to sting my scalp, unfortunately. So I want these guys to survive and do well. So the honey super, I can't remember when I put it on. I'll look on my records and try and amend it before I put the video out. But there's 10 frames in there, I think. And they were all pretty much filled out. I didn't go into too much detail just because I was more concerned about getting the bees themselves moved. But that's the queen excluder. That was between that one purple box on the bottom and the honey super to keep the queen out of there, keep her from laying up in there. And they filled it all out with comb, because that was, I think, pretty much just foundation. They filled it out because that's what swarms do. They like to build comb. Because, I mean, you think about it, a swarm's moving away from their established hive. They're moving to a whole new place that, pretty doubtful that they're going to find a place that's got honeycomb already there. So they have to start fresh. So, yeah. So if you catch a swarm and you need foundation, put in a couple of frames with drawn out comb on it if you can. Maybe a frame of honey if you've got it, but the rest of them can be empty foundation. I would coat the foundation with wax if you don't use wax foundation. I use plastic foundation. So I bought a cheap little crock pot slow cooker that I throw any cappings and stuff that I've scraped off from other frames that something was wrong with them. And I melt them down. I get an old paintbrush from Dollar Tree. And I go have an afternoon of coating frames. Yeah, I think they're starting to find their way. Okay, bees. Settle down, go in there and tell your queen to start laying up upstairs for a change. Fly, be free. Okay. I think my glass is fogged up. Whew. All right, so this is me after, take those off, after inspecting and treating 3 hives for varroa mites with Apigard. I don't recommend it, doing it the heat of day, but I did it in the morning when it was still in the 70s. Unfortunately, it's like bright blue skies. Sun being down on my head, no bueno. Do I look flushed? I feel flushed. All right, well, I'm about to hop up. There goes the eye. Yep, time to whoop. Good. Some little bee. Don't mess with me. Time for me to go up and get some refreshments, as in ice water. Take a cool shower. Chillax for a little while until my core body temperature falls below 1,000. So, tip of the day for, what is this, August 7th, 2022? If you're old and out of shape like me, maybe rethink getting into bees. Not really. Maybe just don't try and do more than a few hives. So I started with 1 hive in 2017. Got, until a few weeks ago, had ended up with 10 hives due to splits and swarms and coming and going and dead outs and things like that. So prepare, have more equipment than you think you need, especially in the springtime. It's not quite as critical, summer and bee, I don't smell like honey. Summer and fall and winter aren't as critical, but in spring, when the queen is really getting into it and laying eggs and all that kind of stuff, and the hive decides, yeah, we're going to swarm this year, which with my bees, that's pretty much every year. I know there's things you can do to keep them from swarming, but, again, that old and out of shape thing kind of, rears its ugly head. Plus weather, there are times too, so sweaty. There are times when, what was I saying? Yeah, weather and time like that. I know people say, there are some people that say, don't get into your hives if it's not above 60, especially if there's brood, and, don't go into it on a cloudy day, and don't go into it when it's raining, don't go into it when it's windy. But I live in an area that it's one or the above all the time. Those perfect days of Camelot don't happen here in my little section of Northeast Tennessee. I wish there were more. If I thought I could handle it, I'd move to, somewhere outside of San Francisco where they have, pretty much mild weather year round and hardly any rain except for a few little bits here and there. But I don't. I live in East Tennessee. And we can be cold as crap come winter and then boiling hot in the summer. Very little spring, very little fall. Matter of fact, I've lived here 30 odd years.
I had a break in between when I felt I had to go other places. Came back, yeah. But yeah, so there is no such thing as perfect weather for my bees. I gotta do it when I can, when I don't have other things. Luckily, I do work from home, so, you know, heaven forbid if I had a full-time job somewhere else, you know, where I was gone 40 hours a week during the day, most likely, yeah, I would not have now 9 hives of bee. I had discovered a dead out, but it was one of those hives that I didn't like anyway, so I was okay with it. But I still feel bad for not keeping a better eye on it. But yeah, so do a little time. So I was just kind of making sure that I didn't have dead outs that I had to clean up. Make sure there are plenty of bees in there. Usually this time of year, as long as looks like there's robust numbers of bees, you don't have to inspect quite as closely as you do other times of the year, which is a good thing because I would die. But yeah, so just check and make sure that there seems to be adequate numbers of bees, not too many drones this time of year. How many is not too many drones? If every other bee you see is a drone, then you've got a problem. You've either got a queen that's didn't get mated adequately, or she's running out of sperm, she's getting old, something like that, and she's now just laying drones, or you've got a worker that's laying, and neither one of those is a good thing. This time of year, it's a little more likely that you can find out issues like that and get another queen going. Either do one of your own, combine hives. I have taken, hives that had queens but didn't have really a lot of numbers, and maybe because I needed to have fed them a little bit before I just let them do their own thing, kind of deal. Still learning after 5 years. This isn't as much an easy thing as I thought it was going to be. Imagine that. But yeah, so this time of year you can either get other queens from other hives, combine hives, or you can find people with queens to sell, that kind of stuff. It's getting a little late in the year, so if you haven't already done so and you have bees, get out there and just make sure that everything looks cool. Yeah, and then just make sure that they have plenty of food. The 3 hives that I inspected today all had plenty of honey for themselves. There was one hive that was a late swarm this year that was doing gangbusters, and they were running out of room. They had a single deep and a honey super on, and we started going into the dearth, so I was like, I don't want the queen to run out of room. They were bearding outside even when it wasn't really cold or hot and that kind of stuff, so I thought, well, they need more room. So I put a second deep on there and left the honey super on, thinking, maybe she would go ahead and get up to the second level and leave the honey there, and they just finished the honey for me. I can go back. Nah, they just started taking the honey from the honey super and putting it down into the second box. So, lesson learned. Wait a couple of weeks and let them finish capping the honey and then take it off and then add a box. But, you never know. The recent rains, the reason why I left it there is because we were in the middle of a dearth, middle of a drought. We hadn't had rain for good 2 or 3 weeks. Not a lot of things blooming. So I was like, well, rather than get honey, I think I'd rather just, keep my bees alive kind of deal, try another year, next year. But then it started raining and the flowers came back and they started going at it again. So it's all about timing and Mother Nature. And she's mean sometimes, you know that? All right, so I'm going to go back in now that I think I've cooled down enough that I won't fall going up the stairs. I'm going to take a shower, possibly get us Coca-Cola, because, yeah, I can feel the vapors. But, all right. So until next time. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Until next time. Bye.